In the headlines, organized labor holds nationwide fuel hike protest as protesters find way into National Assembly. President Tinubu submits supplementary ministerial list as Senate continues screening of ministerial nominees. Mali, Guinea-Bissau, Burkina Faso and Guinea absent as West Africa defense chiefs meet in Abuja. And on the foreign scene, first planes carrying evacuees from Niger land in Paris and Rome. Hello and welcome to Trust News Updates. I'm Darshan Husseina Usman. And now the news in detail. Consistent with the position taken by leaders of the organized labor, the Nigeria Labour Congress on Wednesday staged a nationwide protest following failure of the federal government to cushion the effect of the fuel subsidy removal. The protest, which started at the Unity Fountain in Abuja, moved onto the National Assembly complex, where the protesters pulled down one of the gates of the National Assembly complex and forced their way into the premises to register their grievances. Trust TV's Shafiu Suleiman reports that Senate promised to intervene in the seeming breakdown of negotiations between federal government and the unions.
A peaceful protest all through, and the message is simple. Reverse anti-people policies. Make refineries functional to end petrol import dependency. Nigerians must breathe in the face of suffocating economic atmosphere.
We want to make a case, that Nigerians can no longer breathe. That's the message we brought here. That we have been suffering. And the slave has nothing to lose than his chest. It has gotten to our neck and we can't breathe again.
Two variables are not under our control. One, the exchange rate and the cost of crude oil at the international market, which means it's going to be a vicious cycle that it has been for the past 30 years. It has been a vicious cycle, and it will continue to be a vicious cycle, and it will continue to affect our economy. And therefore, government must come with three plans: immediate, medium, and long-term plan. I've not seen that on the table.
With their message of resilience and solidarity, the protesters march through like a tsunami, ready to dismantle any security blockade. They occupy the National Assembly complex, according to NLC National Secretary, gasping for breath in an environment with excess energy to reel out their demands.
We can't continue to run an import-driven petroleum system, energy system. It will depend on what they call the vagaries of the market. If the dollar goes for 1,000 naira per dollar, they will import at that rate and increase it and tell you it's market forces. Who is market forces? Nigerian workers want to know who is market forces.
We want you in National Assembly to show sacrifice. We want you in National Assembly to cut down your budget. We want you in National Assembly to go and buy Innosi Motors. We don't want you to go and buy Toyota, to go and buy imported vehicles, because you are creating jobs over there and you are importing suffering here.
Some senators were at hand to give a listening ear, just as they share in the concerns over petrol subsidy removal. They, however, needed time to properly intervene.
I beg you in the name of God, let us take what we are doing serious. Let us know that God is watching us. Let us not come here to only wave flags and then sing songs and go back. Let us solve the problem that is in this country. As I come to speak to you, I swear to God, I speak because I know what I went through to escape poverty.
The organized labor has made its demands clear, straightforward and explicit to the National Assembly leadership. They have a 6-point demand, among which they said the federal government should reverse all its considered anti-people policies as a way forward. They also talked about the need to resuscitate and make operational the nation's 4 refineries as alternative to subsidy removal. From the lobby of the National Assembly here in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. Shafiu Suleiman, Trust TV News.
The Borno State NLC chapter has described subsidy withdrawal as a suicidal policy by the federal government. The NLC and other trade union bodies are demanding the reversal of fuel price, increase of salaries and minimum wage, and most especially an end to anti-people policies. The planned protest could not extend to other parts of the capital because the Nigerian police barricaded the labor union. Beatrice Kuruti has more on this.
Nigerian workers in Borno State entering the Labour Secretariat for the solidarity protest against the federal government's removal of fuel subsidy and the attendant economic hardships in the country. From the Labour
Africa, the struggle, victory. Today is our day that we are asked nationwide to come out and protest against the bad policies against the poor man of Nigeria and Nigerian workers.
We are demanding for 190 per litre so that we can take our children to school, so that all of us will go to work in a more dignified way. Now, this issue of subsidy removal is a suicide. So we are appealing to the government of the day to allow the masses breathe.
Secretariat, they marched to the streets of Maiduguri. The protesters were blocked at the NUJ Center by the Nigerian police. It was later revealed that the barricade was in line with an agreement with the union and the police that the protest will not be extended beyond the capital for fear of possible unrest.
A policy that is very bad and is not implementable and is not acceptable to Nigerians and workers in general. This is one of the demands. And there are policies like increase in VAT, increase in school tuition fee, that is especially federal government colleges, secondary school, where our children go to school. People are paying 40,000 naira per annum. They have increased, suddenly they increased the tuition fee to 100,000 naira. 100,000, of which it is not even affordable to us as workers in Nigeria. Therefore, we are saying no to this policy, and it's anti-workers, anti-masses policy.
The protesters, who are hopeful that the federal government will yield to their demands, are waiting to see if any action will be taken.
Still on labor protests, the organized labor in Katsina State took to some strategic streets of the city on Wednesday to protest the implementation of fuel subsidy removal by the Tinubu-led federal government. The implementation came with its attendant consequences, including a hike in the prices of all basic necessities that combined makes life more difficult for citizens. Abdullahi Yamadi reports that the protest in Katsina enjoyed the cooperation of not only civil servants but other residents of the state. His report.
These civil servants appeals to both the organized labor and the government to consider the harsh economic realities being faced by poor Nigerians, most of whom cannot afford 3 square meals in a day, a situation they say calls for immediate government intervention to rescue the country from an imminent collapse.
To be candid, the removal of fuel subsidy has caused untold hardship, especially to the common man, because life has become very intolerable and unbearable. In this respect, I will advise both parties, the government and the labor union, to try their possible best to do everything humanly possible to come to table, to have a dialogue and find lasting solution to this problem. But honestly, people are seriously suffering.
As far as the situation in the country is concerned now, I felt they are on the right track. Why I said this is because looking for a decent wage for workers will not only improve the workers' condition of living. You should know that each worker has dependents attached, and that is by extension more of the size of the population. Some people are arguing that just a single, they see a worker just as a single worker, not minding the dependents that are with him. So fighting for the rights of workers is fighting for their dependents too. So I'm in support of it.
Meeting between labor leaders and government officials in Abuja was without any definite stand. The labor unions in Katsina said all arrangements have been made to fully mobilize members for the protest.
Arrangement has now reached about 80% for the mobilization of our members that will embark on protest, and also the issue of keeping off from office of all civil servants in the states. And by tomorrow or by today midnight, 12 midnight, we will inshallah ensure that all ministries are locked till the government meet our demands actually.
The Senate on Monday resolved to the executive and the labor leaders to avert the planned protests. Abdullahi Izumayamadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
All right, now joining us in the studio to discuss the nationwide protest is the Nigerian Labour Congress Head of Information and Public Affairs, Benson Ukpa. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Mr. Benson.
Thank you very much.
All right, now talking about the protest, a lot of people actually allayed fears that this protest would be hijacked by hoodlums. Can you tell us how it went? Was it hijacked in any way?
It was not hijacked by anybody. We have always made this point that our protests are peaceful, well coordinated, and well preserved. So, across the 36 states of the Federation and Abuja, there has been no reported incident to the best of my knowledge.
All right, well, that's actually good to know. So now that the protest, is done, what happens if, despite these protests, the government refuses to reverse its policy on fuel subsidy removal?
Well, a protest of this nature is a formal statement of displeasure, anger. And a reasonable government acting reasonably ought to respond to the demands of the organized labor. What labor has done is that it took on its shoulders the agitations by individuals, disparate groups across the country, and marshal this into a document of demand. This is what labor has done. So this should be of significance to the government. Government has this way of gathering information, obtaining information. Okay. And the information available to the administration, I have no doubt, underscores the enormity of this problem. So we are looking forward to a situation whereby government will take seriously today's peaceful protest. However, in the event that government refuses to see reason, there are other options available to organize labor.
And what are those options?
Yeah, within the ambit of the law. And a full strike action is available to the labor. It can shut down the country completely. It has done so before. That it refused to do so this time should encourage a government to go further in its commitment to the welfare of the people.
Okay, well, hopefully it won't get to the point where there will be a strike action. Now, if you actually recall, the Solicitor General of the Federation had insisted that the protest violates the order of the National Industrial Court that restrained the union from embarking on any strike or even any protest. Now, do you entertain fears of an aftermath of the protest?
Well, I want to state here and now that the Solicitor General, with all due respect, missed the point, missed the law here. What we had was a restraining order in respect of our notice of strike in protest against the increase in the pump price of PMS from 187 or 190 naira to 537. Okay, that was what we had. In this matter, we protested against the market forces that raised the price from 530 something naira to 600 and something. You recall neither NNPC nor government accepted responsibility for this new increase. They said it was market forces. So in issuing the restraining order, contemplation was not had or was not intended that there will be another increase, okay? So, okay. And in any case, a restraining order, to the best of my knowledge, is not a perpetual injunction, okay? But come to look at it, there is a difference between a protest action and a strike. A protest action, a peaceful protest action like the one that we have executed, is within our right as enshrined in the 1999 Constitution, as amended, as equally enshrined in the African Charter on Fundamental Rights. Mm. It is enshrined in the corpus of labor laws, okay? So, and this right cannot be abridged by the Solicitor General, okay? So, she acted beyond her brief, except she has been procured by forces beyond the rule of law and justice. Okay. Yes.
All right. Well, sadly, this is where we'll actually have to end this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us, Benson Ukpa, on News Updates this evening.
Yes. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. So that was Head of Information and Public Affairs, Benson Ukpa, joining us and talking about the nationwide protest. Now, moving on to more stories. The Chief of Staff to President Femi Gbajabiamila has submitted President Bola Tinubu's supplementary ministerial list to the Senate. The immediate past Speaker of the House of Representatives submitted the list with the second batch of ministerial nominees to Senator Godswill Akpabio at exactly 3:19 p.m. on Thursday. Senate President Godswill Akpabio on Wednesday unveiled 19 more ministerial nominees submitted by President Bola Tinubu. In the new list are former governors Boyega Oyetola, Osun State, Simon Lalong, Plateau State, Bello Matawalle, Zamfara State, and Atiku Bagudu, Kebbi. Earlier, the Chief of Staff to the President, Femi Gbajabiamila, submitted the supplementary ministerial list to the Senate. The immediate past Speaker of the House of Representatives submitted this list of ministerial nominees. Now, moving on to more stories. Military chiefs from some West African countries converged on the defense headquarters in Abuja, Nigeria, for a high-powered meeting over current activities of military junta in the Republic of Niger. Our correspondent covering the meeting reports that the seats allocated to Mali, Guinea-Bissau, Niger and Burkina Faso military chiefs are however vacant. The military chiefs attending the meeting include Togo, Sierra Leone, Senegal, Nigeria, Ghana, Liberia, Guinea, Gambia, Cote d'Ivoire, Cabo Verde and Republic of Benin. The meeting is being chaired by the chairman of ECOWAS military chief, General Christopher Musa. The Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff of the Economic Community of West African States meeting is a follow-up to the decision of the Authority of ECOWAS heads of state and government at the extraordinary session held on the 30th of July in Abuja. Moving on, General Salifu Modi, one of the officers who seized power in Niger last week, arrived on Wednesday in neighboring Mali, whose junta has supported the coup leaders in the face of international pressure, sources said. A senior Nigerian official and a Malian security official told AFP, but did not give further details, that Modi, a former army chief of staff who had been fired in April, arrived in the capital, Bamako, as the head of a delegation. Niger's junta has come under pressure from the international community, while the Economic Community of West African States has threatened potential use of force if the junta does not restore ousted President Mohamed Bazoum by Sunday. The military chiefs of ECOWAS member countries are due to meet in Nigeria from Wednesday for 3 days of consultations. A delegation led by former Nigerian President Abdulsalami Abubakar is also expected in Niger on Wednesday. The ruling juntas of Mali and Burkina Faso, which seized power in 2020 and 2022 respectively, warned in a joint statement on Monday that they would view military intervention in Niger as a declaration of war against their own countries. You're watching Trust News Update. Coming up after the break. How 155% school fees hike generates ripples. Stay with us.
That's great.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us on Trust News Update. A recap of our stories. We told you that organized labor holds nationwide fuel hike protest as protesters find way into National Assembly. We also heard that President Tinubu submits supplementary ministerial list as Senate continues screening of ministerial nominees. Still in the news, the United Kingdom says it is ready to work even more closely with Nigeria on important issues of defense and security of trade and investment. Visiting UK Foreign Secretary James Cleverly revealed this on Wednesday after meeting with President Bola Tinubu at State House Abuja. Cleverly said his country strongly supported the wide range of sanctions announced by the ECOWAS following the ousting of President Mohamed Bazoum by a military junta in the Niger Republic. Kende Amodu reports.
Despite the country being up in protests outside the presidential villa, the business of government continues with President Bola Tinubu meeting with UK Foreign Secretary James Cleverly. The president is direct in his request for stronger bilateral relations, describing the UK as a partner country for the future. Perhaps in reference to the protests led by Labour against fuel price increases and general economic hardship, the UK is throwing its support behind what it calls the important reform programs that President Tinubu has introduced.
And we committed to work
even more closely still on important issues of defence and security, of trade and investment, and we committed to ensuring the UK and Nigeria meet regularly and formally at ministerial level and senior official level to ensure that the good, strong foundation stone upon which the bilateral relationship is built is enhanced even further.
The UK Foreign Secretary also touched on the situation in Niger, commending the stance of ECOWAS and President Tinubu's decisive actions, which demonstrate his strong commitment to democracy.
We touched briefly on the situation in Niger. I made the point that the UK very much welcomes ECOWAS's and his indeed decisive action, his strong commitment to democracy, and the unambiguous message that violence is not the means to bring political change in any circumstance.
The UK Foreign Secretary is inviting a delegation from Nigeria to next year's UK-Africa Investment Summit, and is particular about Afrobeats, which he says has become one of Nigeria's dominant cultural exports. Cleverly, he is on a 4-day African visit and is prioritizing future-focused, mutual beneficial partnerships. He's scheduled to spend 2 days in Nigeria. From State House, Abuja, Kehinde Amodu, Trust TV News.
Now on education, students of the University of Jos are lamenting the over 155% increment in school fees by the management of the institution. The university management had on Saturday released a new school fee schedule for fresh and returning students, a development that many parents and students say is uncalled for. Adom Musa completes the report.
The approved new charges for the 2022 academic session indicates that fresh students will pay 213,000 naira, while returning students will pay 160,000 naira. Last session, both fresh and returning students pay 45,000 naira each. However, the students say the new charges are too high for parents considering the economic hardship in the country.
Because the increment is very high, in the sense that a lot of us cannot accommodate such. We interact within us, we know our capacity, and seriously, the way how the country is going, I don't think if most of us will come back to the school and continue with our program. I don't think so.
Honestly, like every other Nigerians, it's very outrageous. Like I keep telling people, most of us we are students and we are fathers. We have children also who are also in school. We have our wives who are also in school. We have our dependents who depend on us for their schooling. So now increasing the school fees to this kind of amount is so outrageous.
I have heard that University of Jos have increased their school fees, and it's not nice at all, because some people are coming here because they cannot afford private university. Are they trying to compare themselves to private universities? Some of us came here because we will not be able to afford it at all. So we're supposed to learn.
President Bola Tinubu had in his nationwide broadcast on Monday asked higher institutions, especially universities, to avoid arbitrary increment of school fees in order to ensure that students continue with their education. Adom Musa, Trust TV News, Jos.
Now away from Nigeria, the first military planes carrying mostly European nationals evacuated from Niger landed in Paris and Rome on Wednesday, with France and other countries expected to fly more of their citizens out of the West African country after last week's coup. Niger's democratically elected president, Mohamed Bazoum, and his government were overthrown by members of his presidential guard on July 26 in the 7th military takeover in less than 3 years in West and Central Africa. And with that, we've come to the end of Trust News Update. Don't forget to follow us across all our social media platforms. I'm Darshan Hussaina Usman. Thanks for watching.